Hey guys, it's Whiskey. Welcome to Palm Tree Elegy and say hello to Delta. Give me 5. Good girl. She loves that treat. She'll do anything for a treat. Anyway, this episode is the cons of service dogs for PTSD. I actually did a video, which I'll put a link for up above and probably the links down below. And that one was the pros of having a service dog for PTSD. She's 8 years old. We've been a team for almost 7 solid years now. And as many pluses as there are also minuses. And I really think that we need to emphasize both because people really need to think through and consider what's best for them when it comes to using a service dog for PTSD. Number one thing that I didn't realize when I first started this adventure, and I apologize for the wind if it just kicked up. Welcome to Texas. One thing I didn't realize at first when I started using her for a service dog is dogs attract attention. So if you're in Walmart or you're in a museum or you're somewhere where there are no other dogs, your dog is going to stand out in the crowd. And for some reason, especially when they're cute and adorable and lovely like this one, everybody thinks that they need to be friend with that dog. I've had people baby talk to my dog about how they're not supposed to talk to her because she's a service dog. Oh, I can't talk to you. You're a service dog. And I'm like, then just please don't. They attract attention that if you have PTSD or you have an anxiety disorder, it's attention that you don't necessarily want, but it comes with the territory. So you have to have a strategy in place if that happens. I have the thumbnails for these are going to be her in full garb and everything, and you'll see it said do not pet and everything else, and people didn't listen to it all the time. So if you have a habit of lashing out with your PTSD, might not be the best thing for you to do depending on the circumstance and where you're going. They require more prep and energy, the care, exercise, bathing, feeding. They need to be walked. They need to be let out. If you're going somewhere like airports, you need to find where the potty stations are. If you're going to be on really long flights, and for PTSD, some airlines actually require letters from your counselor or your doctor to get them on a plane, even though they're federally protected otherwise, because the airlines have their own rules. So those are things to have to figure out and think about. If you are somebody who has severe fatigue all the time because of your PTSD or conversion symptoms, you have to either make sure that you're going to be able to take care of your dog and exercise them properly, or make sure you have a backup plan so that if you are in a position that you can't, someone else can. I've run into issues with businesses where people and businesses don't understand the law, or the business understood the law and the employee was ignorant. That's a big thing. So if you're worried about confrontation and issues, I actually had to fight with a hotel. I'd already been there for 2 days, and one of the managers that came on staff, no, it was not the manager, I'm sorry. It was the lady running breakfast who made a big to-do and a big stink out loud, throwing her weight around about how she wasn't going to serve me breakfast as long as I had my pet in the breakfast room. I was traveling by myself and my dog was with me. And it was it was a horrible, horrible experience. And for as long as we've been a team together, the good has always outweighed the bad for me. But I will never forget the experience that lady's ignorance put me through. And then I had to get in a car after all that and drive, right? It was not an optimal day, and it was not the best thing that could happen for us. Another issue because of that, or that causes that, is fake service dogs. We run into people who call their dogs service dogs who are not service dogs so that they can take Poochie on vacation with them. I was actually in a Walmart. A lot of stuff happens in Walmart. I was actually in a Walmart, and a guy was in there with his German Shepherd who was literally trying to eat my service dog, and my dog was just trying to get to the other side of the cart and steer clear of this dog because we both understood that it was not a good energy coming from that dog. And that guy was actually going on and bragging about how the dog came out of either military or police work, that it was a dog who did civil service. It was not a service dog. And I don't know if he misunderstood the parameters of what service dog meant, but here he was walking through Walmart with a working canine who had a problem with my service dog. So, and then the best scenario with that is we just turned around and we went the other way. I wasn't going to square off with the guy, and he was still talking to me about how great his dog was as it was trying to rip mine and my dog's head off in the middle of Walmart dairy section. The fuzzy laws and scammy businesses. Some businesses just don't want to deal with animals. They'll ask you for documentation and thing that is not required because they're trying to get out of letting you have your service dog in their businesses. The laws they're pretty clear, but there's no definitive documentation or anything like that. If somebody's telling you you have to pay for documents or do anything like that, they just want your money. And actually, I went to one hotel with her and they asked me for documentation, and I said it's against federal law for you to ask me for documentation or to even require that because it's not required. And he said, correct answer. And he actually had asked me that as a test to see if I actually knew what the law was and what my rights were as a service dog handler. So there's a lot of scammy businesses that will do things, that ruin it for other people. In that business, I appreciate you guys. You were great for what you did that day. Untrainable events. This was a big one. During COVID, I had to actually reach out and talk to a couple of my other friends who were handlers of service dogs and seeing eye dogs and stuff like that too, because this beautiful thing right here was 6 years old when COVID hit. She was not trained for the entire world to be wearing a mask on their face. She was not trained for me to be wearing a mask on my face. She was not trained she picks up on my energy, right? She was not trained to be picking up on global energy when all hell was breaking loose. It really, in some instances, was a problem for her. One of them being the groomer that she was going to. She can't go back to her groomer anymore because they put her as a bite risk, and it wasn't her. It was the fact that they were in the back in their kennels wearing masks and dealing with dogs. And they had her back in her kennel when she was waiting her turn, and with the mask on, leaned down into her kennel and reached their hand in to grab her. And they scared the crap out of my service dog. And because she was so scared, she wanted to protect herself, she nipped, and there was no damage, there was no nothing, and she's never done it to anybody since. And they refused to groom her. And I was like, well, that's okay, because if you don't understand the psychology of how you just terrified my dog, I don't want you grooming her anyway. So you have to understand that there are certain things that you cannot train your dog for, and things that will happen. You have to have a backup plan. If it's in a circumstance that we're not ready for or we're not prepared for, are we going to just leave? Are we going to advocate for ourselves? Is it worth the fight? What are we going to do to mitigate this situation for ourselves and for the best scenario for not traumatizing our dog? Another one, I flipped a canoe with her in it. She went canoeing with me. I flipped the canoe. I hit a tree, and now she won't go. There's certain things that she just will not do with me because of noise levels and stuff. I completely betrayed her trust on accident. But when I flipped that canoe, she was like, to hell with you. I'm never going and doing anything like that with you again. And I can't say as I blame her, because that scar on my chin, yeah, same canoe accident. I took a beating on that one too. So I fully respect her borders and boundaries on that. They could be cost prohibitive for some people. She's a rescue. I got her for free. If you want to get a trained professional service dog, you're talking $5,000, $10,000, up to $20,000 for that dog, depending on what company you're going through, what kind of training it is, how old the dog is. And then you still have veterinary care and grooming and continued training. Some people have a trainer, so as things change and things progress in their own diseases or PTSD or what have you, they might have to hire a trainer to keep going on and keep training with things. So sometimes that can be cost prohibitive, or if there's an emergency for your dog or even yourself, if you're spending all your income on taking care of your own health, then there might be an issue with money if it comes up that your dog also needs medical care. So those are things too, and you can get insurance for dogs too. So there are things to look into, but there's things to think about as a con up front. They may not adjust to schedule changes. When I lost my job, I was no longer getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning on a consistent schedule to go to work. For a long time, this fool was still waking me up in the morning. She didn't do really good with that. If there's certain things that she's trained to, and then all of a sudden your life takes a shift, like you moved to the other side of the country, and now you went from Eastern time zone to Pacific time zone, She's still in Delta zone. She doesn't know the difference that the humans changed times by 3 hours, right? So if she's used to 6:30 every night screaming at me for dinner, it might be 3:30 where we're at, and I'm not thinking about it, but for her it's already 6:30, or however, I didn't make the timeline set up like the way it probably should, but you get what I'm saying. If you're trained to certain schedules, or if you're on a flight and it's dinner time, or she goes outside at a certain time and you happen to be on a flight or on a train or on a bus or something, excuse me, you have to understand that sometimes it's not always going to work with what the dog wants, and the dog will get very persistent and be a royal pain in the buttocks if she's not getting her way when we were full-time working all the time. Retirement choices. She's 8 years old. She will die with me. She's here forever. I have that choice. If you are the owner of a professionally trained dog that came from a program, a lot of program dogs are not allowed to stay if you get a next gen dog. If you get your next generation dog coming in because the other one's senior and retiring, they won't let you have more than one animal on the property. One animal, period. You can't have any other pet, no other animal. And that just doesn't work for me. I have 100 chickens, 5 dogs, a cat, and 2 doves. According to their rules, I would not be allowed for a service from a program dog because of my love and my empathy for other animals. Kind of a backwards thing for me, but I understand it's also to mitigate not having problems between this dog and other dogs, and keeping the focus from the handler and the handler service dog team. Hi. Did you see that? Are you ready? Give you 5. Good girl. We'll take it. So those rules, right? You have to qualify their rules if you're going through a professional one. If you're training a dog privately, you can't even call them a service dog in training till they're a year to a year and a half old. And it takes a year to 2 years on average, depending on what you're training them for. And really the training never stops. But it takes a year to year and a half to officially really have them solid, where you could say, yes, this is my service dog and she's almost on it, right? Because they're still dogs. They still mess up just like we still mess up. And they have good days and bad days. People have to understand that. But you could spend 2 years privately training a service dog and then having that dog burn out where something happened and they just cannot function in the way that you need them to function to. Like if I was a professional kayaker or canoeer and I needed my service dog with me at the finish line and I need her on the boat with me, I can't do that because I ruined this dog on a canoe. She said, to hell with you, I'm not getting on it. Something I can't do with her. It's one of the reasons I don't put her on my Harley, because I ruined her on a canoe. I understand that, right? So those are just the risks you have to take. So, or you don't have to take them, but you have to at least consider them. And then there's housekeeping. You know, if you're not feeling good and you're not doing so well on taking care of yourself, you still have extra housekeeping. This daughter over here, she sheds chinchillas, and I'm not even joking. It's like clumps of hair. You could brush her and get a whole dog worth of hair off of her every single day. We have to make sure that we keep up with grooming and maintenance and cleaning up the dog hair piles in the corners because they build up pretty quick. And then the last one is for your dog is space. Where are you going? What do you do? What kind of lifestyle do you have? What size is your dog going to be when it's grown and full size? She's about 50, 60 pounds, depending on which food bowl she's stealing out of. And she fits really good and tucks under tables really good. She's scared her share of waitresses and servers because they don't know that she's even under the table. If they didn't see her come in, they don't know she's there the entire time until she slides under the table when we leave. And then they're like, oh shit, there's a dog under the table, right? But if you go on buses or planes, trains, we've been in doctor's offices where the rooms in the doctor's offices are so small that the dog barely fits in the room with myself and the doctor or the therapist. So those are just all really things to consider when, as a con for getting a service dog. It's about even with the pros, but there are things that you do really have to consider and things that you have to take into account before we make that commitment, because dogs and animals in general are a lifelong commitment, and this one is literally helping you deal with your life too. So it needs a little bit more weight than what you would even with a regular pet. Anyway, Delta, get up. Say bye. Say bye. Say bye. Say bye. Are you going to say bye? You're not going to. She's like, whatever, lady. There's no treat in your hand. I'm 8 years old and I'm over this. She's waiting for the treat. Anyway, we love y'all. We will catch you on the next one. Keep on rocking. Bye.